this man, his name is Sadhu Maharaj, and he is a king. Actually, his father was a Maharaj of Bihar. His grandfather was even a bigger Maharaj until the government started taking away, the land holdings of the kings. He said his grandfather was such a great Maharaj that he established these beautiful, huge temples all over India. And he used to do the worship with his own hands. And when he got older, he turned... Actually, they told a story about how his parents, the other king, the king who was his father and mother, the king and queen, they got him married to a nice lady, and they wanted him to have a son, to be the next prince, to be the king. But the father and the mother, they were both so Krishna conscious, they didn't want anything to do with such a thing. So the grandfather used to come with the spies and look in the room and figure, why is there no son coming? And then they would just see that they chanted all night. The mother and father were just chanting all night. So finally he ordered it. He said, you have to do it. He said, well, I want to go and retire in Vrindavan as a mendicant. He said, all right, you can go, but you have to have a son first. So he had this one son, who was this Sadhu Maharaj's father. Anyway, when this grandfather went to Vrindavan, he became friendly with our Srila Prabhupada at Radha Damodar, because Srila Prabhupada lived at Radha Damodar, and many people go, almost all the Brijvasis go to Radha Damodar every day in the morning and go 4 times around, the Shila of Raghunath Das Goswami and so many special things there. Sanatana Goswami. So he said that his grandfather, when he was a little baby, brought him on his grandmother's lap and met Srila Prabhupada. And he said Srila Prabhupada blessed him at that time, you will be a great devotee. But he said he didn't become a great devotee, he became a king. And he said he had to run all this business and take care of all the holdings of the kingdom. And Bihar is quite a large state. And then he had these huge temples in Vrindavan that were for his people when they came on parikrama. So there was, 20,000 people came at Kartik, and he had to take care of everybody. And so he said that he didn't, he was not so much more involved in his business. And he took initiation from one old Vaishnav saint. I think you can see his picture all over Vrindavan. He was 125 years old, and he had that very amazing smile. What was his name? Radha Govinda Maharaj. Anyway, he had a relationship with Srila Prabhupada that supposedly was quite sweet, but unfortunately he's gone, so I couldn't interview him himself. But he said, this man said that they all saw all the Westerners coming to India, and everyone was amazed that Srila Prabhupada had done that. And his Gurudev would always glorify Srila Prabhupada, saying that he was an incarnation of Nityananda himself. But he said he was very rarely in Vrindavan. He never got to go there or see anything. He was doing business. Then he said in 1977, around November, he came to see his guru, and his guru told him, you immediately have to go to Krishna Balaram Temple at Raman Reti. You have to go there and you have to pay your full respects and honor to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who I have told you before is an incarnation, no less, if not more, than Nityananda Prabhu. He said, so you immediately go. He said, I'm in a basket, I can't go anywhere, because he was so old. He said, but you also pay respects on my behalf. And so this man came. He was just he said he was dressed not even in devotee clothes, he still had his, business clothes on and stuff. And so he went to the door of Srila Prabhupada's room. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada, they weren't letting so many people in. It was a very quiet time, and Srila Prabhupada was in the room. And many friends used to come there, but a lot of times the devotees didn't know who they were, and they didn't let them come. So he was just humbly standing there from morning until afternoon, until it was getting evening, because his guru had ordered him, so he had to stand there. And occasionally he would say something like, is there any chance that I could see Srila Prabhupada? And they go, no chance, no. And so he'd go, all right. So finally it was getting dark, and he was exhausted. He hadn't eaten or anything, or drank water or anything. He was just waiting there. So finally he said some nice girl came, and he said, is there any chance that I could pay my respects to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada? My Gurudev is ordering me. And she goes, well, I don't really think so. And then all of a sudden a voice came from Prabhupada's room saying, who is that, in Bengali? Who is that? And so she just said, well, I don't know, it's some man here. Says he has to talk to you. Prabhupada said, bring him in. So he said he came in, and there was a few disciples, but he said they left. And then he was just alone with Srila Prabhupada. And he said that Srila Prabhupada looked at him really deeply. He said, do you know? And then he mentioned the name of his grandfather. And he said, yes, I know, that's my grandfather. He goes, yes, I was thinking there was some resemblance. He said, I know your grandfather. He was a great soul. He goes, what are you doing? What devotional service are you doing? And he said, well, you know, I'm managing the temples and I'm managing the kingdom. I'm doing all the business. And Prabhupada said, no, what devotional things are you doing? And he said, well, I have some paid priests and they're doing the artiks and things like that. Prabhupada, he says, what is this nonsense? He goes, your grandfather himself, who had a golden Rolls Royce, he gave up everything and he came to Vrindavan and never wore shoes, and he did all the puja and all the offerings and took care of those deities with his own hand, never let anyone else do. So what is this with you? And he said he was very embarrassed. He said, well, I don't know how I could do that. And Srila Prabhupada said, you will do it. He goes, and not only will you do it, but one day you will be a great devotee and a great preacher, and you will travel all over the world and preach. And he was thinking, and he said, but I know nothing. I'm useless. I don't even know the philosophy very well. I'm just a king. And Prabhupada said, no, it will happen. He said, you are like my grandson. You are my grandson. You are also my grandson. So he couldn't figure out what that was, but anyway, he went home. Oh, and he gave his dandavats for his Gurudev, and then Prabhupada gave his blessings like that. So he ran home, and when he got home, his Gurudev started jumping up and down in ecstasy, saying, oh, you've got the mercy, you've got the mercy. He said, but I don't want to be a preacher. I am a king, I've got 5 children. How can I give up all of this? He said, but if he gave those words, then that will surely happen. So he said that he kind of forgot about it, although it was kind of always there in his heart that he had been given that benediction by Srila Prabhupada. Oh, and he said that when Srila Prabhupada gave that benediction, he felt like thrills in his body. It was something very amazing that he couldn't really relate to the fact that it would ever happen. So then he said, many, many years later, after Srila Prabhupada was gone and his Gurudev was gone, he was still managing that temple. And one day, into the doors came one of my godbrothers, Paramadwaiti Maharaj, who was looking for some Sanskrit books because they had a library there. So he came in, and the first thing he said when he saw him was, he said, oh, what are you doing? You're the king of Bihar. He goes, I know you are. He goes, so what are you doing here doing all this business? You should become a preacher, and you should travel all over the world and preach. And as soon as he heard that, he said, he was stunned, and he remembered immediately everything Srila Prabhupada had said to him. And so he looked at him, he said, well, oh, and Srila Prabhupada also told him you should take sannyas and do this. So he said that, Paramadwaiti Maharaj looked at him, he said, and you should take sannyas as well. So he said he lost all of his arguments, and he just said, all right, well, would you give me sannyas? And so he said as soon as he took sannyas from Paramadwaiti Maharaj, then he realized that Prabhupada's words were also true, because Prabhupada told him, you will become my grandson. So actually he did become formally also a grandson. And now he does travel all over the world and preach. He actually came to our little temple in Hawaii, and he was telling us all sorts of nectar about those early days in Srila Prabhupada.